Thank you so much. Can you give them one more round of applause? Thank you so much. And now we have a special guest, and we are really thrilled that she could join us. We have Her Excellency Ahunna I'm going to mispronounce it, Eziakonwa. Ahunna Eziakonwa is the Assistant Secretary General, United Nations, and Assistant Administrator and Director of UNDP for the Regional Bureau for Africa. Ahunna, we are thrilled that you could join us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and really wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for your patience and your insights throughout the day. I'm looking forward to consuming all the important conversation that's happened here. We at UNDP are so pleased to be able to collaborate with ServiceNow and many others on this very important subject. What I thought I'll do, I just came from a conversation, totally accidental, with 3 gentlemen and a lady who work on data. And I asked them the question why they are so keen on Africa. And I'm just going to read you what they say. And also I asked why Africa and what does Africa need? So they talked about the global digital economy gap. And I would say opportunity as being 250 gigawatts gap. Projected IT spending in the next 5 years will be $29 trillion. And then they talked about a foundational truth, which is that when you have no data center, you will have no data economy and no investment. And what's the required boost? It's 600% increase in digital infrastructure capacity to address the new AI workload. These are all at the global level. Then they talked about the key principles for attracting FDI and investment, which Africa is also looking to increase. And the analogy is just as airlines need airports, investors in the digital economy need data centers. And that policies matter. And I know that we have some excellencies, honorable ministers in the room who are the policy makers. You'll be pleased to know that your relevance has been established, that investor-friendly digital policies are essential for you to be able to attract investment. They talked about rating systems, a developed rating framework for data centers that should be adopted to build investor confidence, just like you have credit rating of countries. Now, strategic actions for Africa. Very interesting points about developing an Africa digital economy roadmap. So not a strategy as such, but going beyond a strategy to actually designing a roadmap for the future, setting out a clear vision and milestones for digital growth. And then anchoring it within the African Union-wide frameworks and also aligning with continental priorities. Secondly is harmonizing continental digital infrastructure standards, the fact that standards matter. Establishing common rules and standards across member states. Reducing fragmentation and ensuring interoperability across markets. And these are all governance-related actions. And that's why, even though there's a heavy private sector anchoring of this, we cannot ignore the role of government and the role of the public sector overall. Third is investing in education and skills, something ServiceNow itself is deep into and which is of interest to us as UNDP as well. Building systems that skill, reskill, and upskill for digital readiness. linking education with private sector needs in AI, cloud, cybersecurity, etc. I heard in the last panel this point was made. Identifying and building regional digital hubs. This one is interesting. You know, for those who are working in Africa and engaging with the different countries, really important to listen to this, that Africa is not going to be able to take advantage of this immense opportunity if it doesn't start to cluster assets and talent. So they were talking about selecting 5 to 10 countries as lead digital hubs. So an example, can Kenya be seen as the digital hub for East Africa? And if you're Rwanda in this room, you might shoot me. But I mean, it's just totally random. But think about it, Nigeria perhaps for West Africa. But it's really important to convince leaders on the African continent that competition on this question is detrimental to Africa being able to compete globally. Competition among countries in the same zones or in different regions. So starting to shape a culture of understanding that the strength lies in converging, consolidating, collaborating our assets and efforts. And then creating the digital triangle where we connect accelerators, startups, and investors, avoiding working in isolation and building really an ecosystem where innovation thrives. And I really believe in this, and I'm going to just say that as UNDP, we're so excited that a couple of years ago, we decided to make this investment, to have, you know, skin in the game by using our development assets and financing. And by the way, we're in every country. You know, you have big corporations that are maybe in 1 or 2 countries in Africa, but you have an entity here that actually boasts of having, you know, listening posts and capacities in country offices around the world and around Africa. Every single country in Africa, you have a UNDP country office working closely with governments and stakeholder actors on these issues. How do you leverage that asset in UNDP? But also the fact that we have this convening power. And I think what you've discussed here today represents the fact that no one actor is going to be able to do this at scale or sustain it. So how do we use our convening power as UNDP to bring actors together and continue this building bridges across our different portfolios and missions? And the reality for Africa here is compelling, and you've all talked about what Africa has to offer in terms of the youth in particular. And here, our experience in UNDP is not just that Africa is the youngest continent in the world today, it's that you have young people who are now quite connected and motivated. And they are also, in my view, a cabinet of conscience because they feel everything about what's not going right in their communities and in their countries. They feel the needs. It's organic, it's personal, it's authentic in terms of their search for development solutions. And that's why UNDP cares. And that's why we talk first. We need to nurture that talent and entrepreneurial spirit. And our Timbuktu initiative, which many of you here have heard about, is really providing a platform, not a pilot, and not a project, but a platform to engage the world in taking this youthful talent and exuberance seriously, in trusting it with capital that's not just for enterprises that have established market value, but early stage risk capital to the ideas that our young people have, bringing this value to universities. We cannot leave our universities behind. Those minds have to be cultivated while they are on campuses. And governments and many of us should not be puzzled when students graduate and they have no jobs. It's because we haven't invested in a correct way and in a robust way in this area of technology and digitalization within campuses, and hence our university innovation pods, which we are working with universities and countries on the idea, the vision being having at least one classy, world-class really innovation center in each university in each country. We've done 14 of them. By the end of this year, 26 would have been established. It's a magnet for minds that they're hungry for skilling and for connecting them to the future of work, but also the work of today. And organizations, outfits, companies like ServiceNow now have a pipeline that we're developing through our uniports to bring training, but many of you here as well. We're looking at Pan-Africa scale type. African markets are really fragmented and not that attractive to investors when looked at individually. But we have launched the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the largest trading bloc in the world today, 1.5 billion people strong and more than $3 trillion potential market. How do we liberate that and leverage it for market access to our startups and entrepreneurs? And that is another opportunity that's open to investors. So I want to close by saying, to move really from vision to action, we need 3 key commitments that are quite essential. The first is political will, which brings in budgets. We need AU-level regulations that would help harmonize standards, because now we know that industry players need that to be able to take Africa seriously. Secondly, we need global solidarity, and that's why this conversation is so important here today. Not just connecting with the world out here that has an interest in investing in Africa, but also the diaspora. We see many of you here from the diaspora who are eager to bring your best to the continent. How do we make that happen? Because blended finance and fair access to compute must become part of global compacts, and also our just like we have in climate finance. Third is private sector leadership. Africa's startups and investors must be at the center, with barriers to capital, compute, and connectivity completely removed. So, Excellencies, dear friends and colleagues, AI made in Africa must not mean catching up. It must mean leading with values, something that Africa knows a lot about, leading with people, and leading with courage. The future of AI will be shaped in Africa because, as the last comment said, life indeed started on this continent. And as such, our considerations about Africa's AI journey must factor in the concept of sovereignty, of Africa's ownership, not just its adoption of ideas created elsewhere. So I am really pleased to have had this chance to connect with you and also to demonstrate to you that you have a UN organization in UNDP that is plugged into this space and wants to use its assets, its connections, its influence to work with all of you so that we can make this journey a reality beyond measure for the continent of Africa and therefore for the world, because as they say, the Africa we want is indeed the Africa the world needs. Thank you.